I've gotten plenty of requests for plenty of different anime characters on this channel, so I had to throw it up for a vote over on Patreon, and I even asked my Discord community about some additional anime characters to add to that vote, and Rimuru Tempest from That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime came out well ahead. I've gotten plenty of requests for this one on my channel, and I'd been putting it off a little bit because Rimuru is a very overpowered character, and trying to come up with how to actually build it was going to be a bit of a challenge. But the comments and the votes have spoken, so I gotta figure it out, because this is D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons and Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. Rimuru Tempest from the Isekai anime That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime is your typical person that dies and gets reincarnated in a fantasy world. The big difference is that they're reincarnated as a slime. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump into the race, and of course we're gonna go with Plasmoid. This race is from Spelljammer, and it's pretty spot on for playing as a slime, because your creature type is ooze, and you get plenty of other unique benefits. Like you can hold your breath for 1 hour, you're amorphous, so you can actually squeeze through a space as narrow as 1 inch, provided you aren't actually wearing or carrying anything, which also gives you advantage on ability checks that you make to initiate or escape a grapple, and that's going to be especially helpful because there's plenty of times where Rimuru just wraps around an entire enemy, and we'll play that off as grappling. There's also the natural resilience, giving you resistance to acid and poison damage, and you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and then finally you get the feature Shape Self. So as an action, you can reshape your body, giving yourself a head, 1 or 2 arms, 1 or 2 legs, hands, feet, whatever you really want. And if you maintain a human-like shape, you can still wear clothing and armor made for humanoids of your size. And you can even let globs of yourself come off that you can control and manipulate, which can get kind of broken if you use it right, so keep that one in your back pocket. Then when it comes to a background, Rimuru has the unique skill Great Sage. So we're going to take the background, Sage. This allows Rimuru to communicate to a disembodied voice in their head, which gives them plenty of information. This background gives us skill proficiencies in Arcana and History, and it gives us the unique feature, Researcher. So if you don't know any information, you know exactly where to get it. Then when it comes to some stats, this always gets controversial anytime I make an anime character because people have their own opinions, but in general, a lot of anime characters are just really good at a lot of things, and unfortunately in D&D you only have so many points to go around if you're using point buy from the player's handbook in 5th edition, which is what I usually stick to. So I'll try to give some reasoning for this, but in general we're going to take our strength, dump it down to 8 because that's not what Rimuru relies on most of the time, but Rimuru is pretty nimble. So we're going to take our dexterity, bump it up to 13, and then get another +1 from our racial bonus, where we can put 1 point into 3 different ability scores. Then we want to make sure we have some health to go around, so we're going to take our constitution, bump it up to 13, and then get another +1 from our racial bonus. Then we're going to skip intelligence for just a second and jump into wisdom. Wisdom heavily affects how much we're able to observe the world around us, and Rimuru's pretty decent at that. So we're going to put 14 points into wisdom, and then when it comes to our charisma, Rimuru is insanely loved by everyone in their community. So we're going to make that our primary stat and bump it all the way up to 15, then take another +1 from the last racial bonus we have left. That leaves us with 1 point left over. So we're going to throw that into intelligence, bringing it to 9. And the reason that we're going to leave this so low is that Rimuru tends to rely on that Great Sage skill for most information, not actually having access to most of it themselves. So I wouldn't really try to say that intelligence is the primary stat here. Now it's time to pick a starting class. And Rimuru has a ton of different abilities, and every time that they absorb something, they essentially get more of them. So we're gonna have to do some multiclassing, and to get the overpowered nature that comes with being an Isekai protagonist, we're gonna have to rely on a few old tricks. But one of the first primary abilities that Rimuru gets is that Great Sage skill, and I feel like Rimuru is essentially attached to some sort of all-powerful type of being. So that leaves us with 2 main options. We could go with something like a cleric and say it's connected to some sort of god, but I don't feel like Rimuru is doing a ton of worshipping, so we're gonna go with warlock. When you choose warlock at first level, you get saving throws in wisdom and charisma, and you get to choose 2 skills. There's not gonna be a ton that's gonna help us too much, so we're just gonna grab deception and intimidation, because even though Rimuru doesn't tend to try to be particularly deceitful. They are deceptive sometimes by necessity, and the sheer overwhelming power that they have leans into the intimidation. Also at first level of Warlock, you get to choose an otherworldly patron, which is essentially a subclass, and that great sage entity feels like a great old one to me, so that's what we're gonna go with. When you make that bond with the great old one, you get Awakened Mind. So now you have the ability to telepathically speak to any creature that you can see within 30 feet of you. And that's going to go ahead and take care of one of the abilities that we were going to have to worry about, because Rimuru had that ability. Additionally, at first level of Warlock, you get Pact Magic. We're going to save most of the spells that you learn for the end, but Pact Magic is very important to note here, because it functions very differently than most other magic in D&D. Pact Magic only gives you spell slots from 1st through 5th level. You only get a few to use, but you regain all of those spell slots on a short or long rest, while most other classes rely on long rests only. Then at 2nd level of Warlock, you get some Eldritch Invocations, which we'll dive into in just a second once we get our 3rd level feature, Pact Boons. You can choose a particular type of pact given to you by your patron, and considering your patron is all about granting you knowledge, I'm going to say that you get the Pact of the Tome. This grants you 3 additional cantrips from any class's spell list, and they count as Warlock spells, and they don't count against the number of cantrips you already know. So now that we have Pact of the Tome, let's grab those invocations. We'll grab one of the most powerful invocations that you can have as a Warlock, Agonizing Blast, which allows you to add your charisma modifier to any blast coming from the Eldritch Blast cantrip. So, spoiler alert for our later spells, we're going to be picking up Eldritch Blast. And then the other invocation we're going to grab is Aspect of the Moon. And you're going to want to remember this for later, because this makes it so you no longer need to sleep, and you can't be forced to sleep by any means. And this is really going to come in handy, because at 4th level, we're doing a multi-class, and with the constant power that Rimuru tends to crank out, despite having to rest occasionally when they overexert themselves, the bottomless pit of magic they seem to have, and the constant regeneration is kinda hard to pull off. So with this build, we're building a CoffeeLock, otherwise known as a Soarlock. For those that don't know, a CoffeeLock is a special kind of build where you have limitless spell slots that you can just constantly use and never run out throughout the day. It's definitely a bit of power gaming, but because we're going to go this route, we're going to be multi-classing into Sorcerer. When you take your 1st level of Sorcerer, you get a Sorceress Origin, and we need the most variety of spells to be able to cast we possibly can get, and we need some self-healing to be able to pull off as well. So the Sorceress Origin we're going to pick, otherwise known as a subclass, is the Divine Soul Sorcerer. When you choose Divine Soul Sorcerer, you get the feature Divine Magic. This gives you a free spell to your spell list based on whatever affinity you are, whether you're good or evil or whatever. And I see Rimuru as being a pretty good aligned character, so that gives us the spell Cure Wounds. The other part of choosing this subclass is that you have access to not just the Sorcerer spells now, or the Warlock spells, but now you can choose any Cleric spell. Additionally, when you choose this subclass, you get the feature Favored by the Gods. So if you fail a saving throw or miss with an attack roll, you can roll 2d4 and add it to the total, possibly changing the outcome. But you can only use this feature once per short or long rest. Then at 2nd level of Sorcerer, you get Font of Magic. And this is where we complete the necessary requirements to become a CoffeeLock, because Font of Magic grants us some sorcery points. You have 2 sorcery points at this level, and the amount of sorcery points you can have is equal to your level in Sorcerer. You can use these sorcery points for flexible casting, allowing you to sacrifice spell slots and gain additional sorcery points if you want, or you can use it the other way around to create spell slots from your sorcery points. And it should be noted that any spell slots you create with your sorcery points vanish when you finish a long rest, and you can only create spell slots up to 5th level. So the way a CoffeeLock works specifically is that you can convert the Warlock spell slots that you automatically recharge on a short rest thanks to Pact Magic, and you can convert those level 2 spell slots directly into sorcery points, and then you can convert those sorcery points into temporary spell slots using the Sorcerer's Font of Magic. Temporary spell slots last until you take a long rest, but you never have to take one of those, especially with your Aspect of the Moon invocation, and Warlock spell slots regenerate on a short rest. So that means that you essentially have a bottomless pit of spell slots as long as you have the freedom to take a couple short rests. And we're going to make that even easier by grabbing another spell later on in this build. Then at 3rd level of Sorcerer, you get Meta Magic, so you can actually alter the spells that you have by spending those sorcery points, which will power through all of the Meta Magic abilities that you get when we jump through those spells. Then at 4th level of Sorcerer, you get an ability score improvement finally, so we're going to boost up our Charisma by 2 points. And then at 5th level of Sorcerer, you get access to 3rd level spell slots. And this is going to be another spoiler for the spells that we get, because this is how you get an even better CoffeeLock. Because you're going to grab the spell Catnap. It's a 3rd level enchantment spell, and while short rests usually take an hour and long rests usually take 8 hours, Catnap makes it so you can take a short rest in just 10 minutes. So now if you need those unlimited spell slots a bit quicker, you can do it in just 10 minutes, making this CoffeeLock build much more efficient. Then at 6th level of Sorcerer, you get another feature from being a Divine Soul Sorcerer, Empowered Healing. So now whenever you or an ally within 5 feet of you rolls dice to determine a number of hit points a spell restores, you can spend 1 sorcery point to reroll any number of those dice. Then at 7th level of Sorcerer, you get some higher level spellcasting, and then at 8th level of Sorcerer, you get an ability score improvement, so we're finally going to max out that Charisma. And then at 9th level of Sorcerer, you get some more strong spellcasting, and at 10th level of Sorcerer, you get to choose one more Meta Magic option. Then once you hit 11th level of Sorcerer, you get even stronger spellcasting, and then when you hit 12th level of Sorcerer, you get another ability score improvement, but we're going to go ahead and use it for a feat. We are already a pretty powerful spellcaster, so let's boost that up even stronger with the feat Warcaster. This makes it so you have advantage on concentrating on spells. If you're going to make an opportunity attack against a creature, you can cast a spell against them instead, and you no longer have to use your hands for casting spells. So if you have any weapons in your hands or things like that, you can still cast all the spells you want. Then at 13th level of Sorcerer, you get some stronger spell casting, and then at 14th level of Sorcerer, you get another feature from being a Divine Soul, Angelic Form. So you can use a bonus action to manifest a pair of spectral wings on your back, giving you a flying speed of 30 feet, and then at 15th level of Sorcerer, you get even stronger spell casting, and then at 16th level of Sorcerer, you get another ability score improvement. And rather than increasing any sort of stats, it's notable that Rimuru is the leader of a large community. A lot of people look up to this slime, so we're gonna grab the feat Inspiring Leader. This makes it so you can spend 10 minutes inspiring your companions, and when you do so, up to 6 friendly creatures, which can include yourself, within 30 feet of you, each gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. And then at 17th level of Sorcerer, you get one more meta magic option, and you get the all-powerful 9th level spell slot, which is the strongest spell slot you can have in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This brings us to 20th level overall of this build. So we'll power through the meta magic options and highlight some of the most important spells that feels like Rimuru. But if you want the full spell list, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, because I don't want to take the time to jump through all of the spells that you can possibly get, because being a warlock of 3rd level while having Pact of the Tome means that you have 5 cantrips from being a warlock, and you can know 4 warlock spells. Then you can know 6 cantrips from being a 17th level sorcerer, as well as 15 spells, plus the extra 1 spell that you learn for free from being a Divine Soul Sorcerer. So you don't want to sit here and have me rattle all those off, so we're just going to highlight the important ones. But first, that meta magic. Over the course of this build, you get a total of 4 meta magic options. I'm going to grab the most powerful ones I think are available, so we're going to grab Twin Spell, allowing you to take any spell that would target only one creature and doesn't have a range of self, and you can target 2 creatures instead. Then we're going to grab Quicken Spell, so you can take a spell that has a casting time of 1 action and cast it as a bonus action. Then we'll grab Extended Spell, so any spell that has any sort of duration that's 1 minute or longer, you can double that duration, and then we'll follow it up with Transmuted Spell. So any sort of elemental damage you would do, you can turn it into any other element that you want. When it comes to the cantrips, you're gonna want to grab a fair amount of different elements and a wide range of things. But we can't avoid grabbing the very powerful Eldritch Blast, because once you hit 17th level of this overall build, you can blast out 4 different beams of Eldritch Blast. Each one of those beams does up to 1d10 force damage, and thanks to our invocation, Agonizing Blast, you can add +5 to each one of them from our Charisma modifier. As far as first level spells, you gotta grab Comprehend Languages. It's just too useful, especially when you're getting isekai'd into an entirely different world, and Arms of Hadar is gonna be pretty useful too, especially since you're already a bit of an ooze and can kind of have tentacle stuff. This just feels like it might fit. But we're definitely gonna need a few other options because we need to be able to protect ourselves, and Rimuru has plenty of defensive abilities, so we're going to grab Mage Armor and follow it up with Shield so our armor class can get boosted up twice. And we have to grab Disguise Self, so you can actually make yourself look like something other than an ooze. Then you're definitely going to want to make sure you have Dragon's Breath, because you do absorb a dragon, so it seems only fitting. Misty Step to give you a bit of teleportation. Fireball, because, well, we're power gaming a bit, you need Fireball. Divination, because you're gonna need to communicate with the Great Sage a bit more. Tasha's Otherworldly Guise, which will both help make you look like a normal fighter in more combat-heavy scenarios, and give you some more physical combat ability because you've mostly been a spellcaster all this time, because it gives you +2 bonus armor class, the ability to fly, your weapon attacks are magical, and you can use your charisma modifier for the attacks, and you finally can attack twice instead of once on your turn. Leaning more into the dragon-like powers that you have, you can grab Draconic Transformation, and there's actually a ton of possibilities if you want to grab that all-powerful 9th level spell. Rimuru has some powerful weapons, so you can grab something like Blade of Disaster. There's plenty of teleportation, so you can grab something like Gate. There's plenty of powerful spellcasting, so you can grab something like Meteor Swarm. But if you want to stay versatile, you can always grab the trusty Wish. There's definitely some more spells worth grabbing, so if you want the full list, feel free to check out my Patreon, which is where I put a vote up for this build, and all of these incredibly awesome people voted on it. And the especially awesome player character patrons: Alex Baden Person, Benjamin, Caleb Roan, Isabel Walker, Jameson Jones, Carcat Kitsune, Keelan, Melendez Robinson, The Dino 21, Wyatt Newsom, Yaksha Senpai, and Z13. Or going above and beyond all of that is my Dungeon Master level patrons that I actually DM D&D sessions for, which I stream live on Twitch, but I go ahead and post them here on YouTube later. Braden Aldridge, Cyberciety, Daniel Galvin, Demiurge, Devin Happy, Eric Wade, GameSteak, Heyo, Kilo, Michael, Talon Starkey, Tristan Bennett, and Salvador. If you made it all the way to the end of this build, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want essentially unlimited spell slots, which will provide you unlimited healing and casting ability, so you can play as Rimuru Tempest. From that time, I got reincarnated as a slime in Dungeons & Dragons.